Good morning and welcome to Questions for Judicial Candidates. I'm your host, Jeff Adelman. Today we're going to be speaking with Gary Dolgin, who's running for Circuit Court Judge in Hillsborough County. As you can see, he's coming to us via satellite, and I appreciate Gary being with us on the show today. Thank you, Gary. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff, and thank you for having me this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss my candidacy with you.
Well, if you could, tell us what drives you to want to serve the people of Hillsborough County as a Circuit Court Judge, Group 30.
Well, I've been practicing law now going on 30 years. I'm a board-certified expert in marital and family law, and my goal is to serve on the family bench so I can help make decisions in the best interests of children and families. A judge literally has the opportunity to sometimes save lives. And in the context of family law, one of the cases that I had more than 20 years ago involved a client of mine named Tara, whose two young daughters were kidnapped by their suicidal father. And that case took good lawyering, but it also took a judge who saw that that file needed to be put on the top of his huge caseload because this husband had taken these two little girls across state lines to Louisiana. He had tried to kill himself previously, and we had to get an emergency order to get the children returned to Tara. And then with that order, we had to get counsel in Louisiana to get the judge to sign an order requiring the children be returned to her. And we had to get law enforcement to go out and pick up these girls. And fortunately, my client was able to get her daughters back safely. But it was not after, unfortunately, her husband followed her back to Hillsborough County, stalked them, and he eventually did kill himself on her birthday, his last act of domestic violence towards her. But over the past 20 plus years, I've kept in touch with Tara. She's raised her girls on her own. They have graduated from college with honors. And I'm just very proud today that she is out there helping me with my campaign. But that is an example of how a judge at that time knew that this case was so important and literally changed and perhaps saved the lives of these girls.
And dealing with family law matters. I mean, we are really dealing with the most important issues of humanity.
We are. We often say that family law is good people at their worst, and criminal law is bad people at their best. And those are the two areas of my practice. I started out my career as a prosecutor, and I also have served the state of Florida as a public defender. So I think that has been valuable experience being on both sides of the criminal courtroom. And that's what I've enjoyed about my law practice is dealing with everyday people who are going through the most difficult time of their life. I mean, what else is there more difficult than going through a divorce or being charged with a crime, other than, the death of a close family member? I can't think of any other two things that could possibly be worse.
And, in terms of your link to the Hillsborough County community, I mean, you're homegrown. You've lived your whole life in the area.
My parents moved to Tampa when I was 2 years old. My dad was Tampa's first board-certified periodontist, Dr. David Dolgin. He passed away 11 years ago this month. He practiced for over 4 decades, practiced until the day that he died, when he was traveling overseas with my mother on a vacation in Thailand. My mother was a teacher at Plant High School, professor at the University of Tampa, and my brother, Dr. Sanford Dolgin, is an ear, nose, and throat surgeon here in town, and my sister, Sarah Kaplan, is an engineer with Microlumen. So very fortunate that everybody, after they went away to school, came back to Tampa. And my parents have 8 grandchildren. And so it's been nice that everybody's grown up here in Tampa now. I don't know that all the grandchildren are coming back, but we'll do the best that we can.
And how long have you been practicing law?
This is 30 years in 2020. I graduated from the University of Florida Law School in 1990. I graduated from Emory University in Atlanta undergrad with a business degree in accounting. And so 30 years of practice, time flies.
It sure does. And can you tell us a little bit about your practice?
Well, as I said before, I started off as a prosecutor and a public defender, and then I opened up my own solo law practice. And I remember the first day very well. I actually wrote an article in the Hillsborough County Lawyer magazine, no runs, no clients, no errors. And I was real excited when the phone rang, thinking, okay, this a salesperson for the Yellow Pages calling. And but I worked hard. I met every lawyer that I could, and said to him, if you don't want your family law case or your criminal law case, please send them to me. And gradually built up my practice. I was doing criminal at the beginning, then expanded to family law, and eventually became board certified in family law. And I've been board certified in family law since the year 2000. I'm one of only churches in Hillsborough County and one of only a few hundred in the state of Florida that is a board certified expert in marital and family law. And we only have one other judge, I believe, in the history of Hillsborough County who is board certified in marital and family law. And I think that is such critical expertise to have, because most judges, new judges in Hillsborough County, are assigned to the family law division. It has not been their area of practice, and it's not the most desirable division to be placed in. But for me, that's my passion and my area of expertise, and that's where I believe that I could make a difference and an impact for the citizens of Hillsborough County.
What does it mean to be board certified, Gary?
What it means to be board certified is that you can hold yourself out as an expert in a particular area of law. Anyone can practice marital and family law if they're licensed to practice in Florida, but there's only 28 of us in Hillsborough County who've taken the extra step to become board certified. And what that, and you can go to the Florida Bar's board certified website or my campaign website, garydolgin.com, to get every single specific. But in summary, you have to devote a major part of your practice to family law. You have to have had a minimum number of trials. At the time that I became board certified, you had to have at least 10 trials. You had to prepare another 15 for trial. You had to have 75 hours of advanced continuing education. You also had to have recommendations from judges who you've tried cases in front of and opposing lawyers, and you don't get to see what they write in their recommendations. There's a board certification committee, part of the Florida Bar, who sends out confidential questionnaires to judges and lawyers who are familiar with you, and then they ask them, can you give us some other names? And so you have a very substantial peer review. And then once you pass that, you have to take an 8-hour written examination, which is just not true, false, and multiple choice, but long essays as well, at least when I took it. And when I passed in the year 2000, I was one of 6 lawyers in the state of Florida to pass the exam that year. Now, I thought I was done with exams after law school, but this was one more exam. It was very challenging, but I'm very proud that I've done it, because it shows my commitment to the practice of marital and family law, and it's a credential that I'm very proud of, and I think it makes a difference when you appear in front of a judge when they know that you're an expert in your area of the law.
Well, given that you are an expert in your area of the law, how does that translate into what you would bring to the bench if you're lucky enough to be elected as a circuit court judge in Hillsborough County?
Well, what's important, a lot of times you have a brand new judge sitting in the family law division, and they may have a specialty in another area of law, but family law may not be their practice area. So just to give you an example, let's say that you have a trial in your family law case. Someone who is a board certified expert like me would in most cases be able to rule right away after hearing the evidence, just because of my background and my familiarity with the law, where someone who was new might need to take the matter under advisement and might take some period of time to be able to come up with a decision, just because they're new to that area, which is completely understandable. The other thing is that I would love to stay in the family law division as my area of expertise, even though I would welcome and would be very qualified to be in other divisions of the courthouse, as I've been a prosecutor and a public defender. I would be qualified to sit in the criminal division. When I was assigned to the juvenile division when I was in the public defender's office. I've handled court-appointed dependency cases as a private lawyer. So I've had experience in all of the divisions of the courthouse. But sitting in the family law division would allow me to bring a unique credential to the citizens of Hillsborough County. And that's my goal and my hope if I'm elected this year.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the services you've offered the legal community? In particular, I know that you are a voluntary arbitrator. Can you talk about that?
Well, the Florida Bar has a program for consumers and lawyers in the event that they have an attorney's fee dispute. A way to resolve that is to have a appointed arbitrator have a hearing and resolve that dispute. The program is free to both the consumer and the lawyer. Both of them voluntarily agree to enter into the program and accept the ruling of the arbitrator, which would be someone like me. And I think it's an excellent program, and I think it's been good experience for me when I've done several arbitration cases. And I think it's so important that the consumer feels like they've been given a fair shake and a resolution of a dispute, and it saves everyone time and money. One of the other things that I have done is I have volunteered for Bay Area Legal Services, which provides free legal services to indigent clients. How I volunteered, though, is I have mentored lawyers who don't have experience in family law, because there's a huge need for family lawyers to provide pro bono services. And so those lawyers who don't have a background in family law, they can call me. We have lunch together. They bring their case information, what they're working on, their file, and I help them and mentor them so that they're able to effectively represent a pro bono client. So I'm very proud of that, and that I feel like I've been able to contribute to the both the legal and the community at large in that fashion.
You're also a Florida Supreme Court mediator. That experience as a mediator, how does that help you if you were to be elected as a judge?
Well, I think the experience is helpful because you're acting as a neutral. You're a neutral party trying to help parties resolve a dispute. Just as you're neutral as a judge. The difference being is that as a mediator, your role is to facilitate a resolution of a dispute, and your role as a judge is to make the ruling in the event that the parties cannot come to a resolution. But I do think in part of the process, as the case is moving along, is for a judge to, speak to the parties and to the lawyers and encourage them to settle their case and to sit down, go to mediation, talk to their lawyers, listen to their lawyers' advice, and try and get their case resolved. Because when people resolve their cases and they have some control in the resolution of their cases, most of the time they are more satisfied with the process, and most people are more likely to follow their settlement agreement rather than having what we call a stranger in a black robe making that decision. Because when a judge rules, probably at least one of the parties is not going to be happy with that decision. Having said that, the sign of a good judge when they are making their ruling is explaining it in a fashion so that even if the decision is adverse to one of the parties, that everyone feels like they've been given a fair opportunity to be heard. And I just think that's so important when you are making a ruling to make it in a fashion so that everybody understands and they feel like they've been treated fairly. Respect for our judicial system is so important to its credibility and success.
I know that community involvement is very near and dear to your heart. Can you talk about some of the causes that are really special to you?
Well, I have been a member of the downtown Tampa Rotary Club for going on 10 years, which is a very special club that does so many wonderful things for the community. One of the, as far as my involvement, one of the things that I've most enjoyed is serving on the college scholarship committee. And so typically there's 5 or 6 of us that we interview several young men and women who have not had the easiest upbringing, and but to see how they have succeeded and show so much promise in life, and so we award all of them some type of scholarship. The winner gets an $8,000 college scholarship, and the others typically get around $1,000 or $2,000. And then every year we have the students come back and speak at our luncheons and tell us what they're doing. They've graduated from college, they've gone to medical school, etc. And just, it's a wonderful, just one of my favorite things to participate in, because all of us, either our parents or our grandparents or our great grandparents came to this country sometimes without a college education. In my particular case, my grandparents came here without a college education, and they stressed the importance of a college education to my parents. My parents were the first in their family to go to college, and each generation, it's the American dream, makes it. We hope that our children do better than we did, and their children do better, and so that's just been very, very meaningful to me.
I neglected to ask you this, and this is something that I think is really very important. As an experienced criminal defense lawyer, prosecutor, and family law attorney, if you were to be a judge, what are some of the things that you would bring to the bench to try to improve the experience for the lawyers as well as the parties involved in these disputes?
Well, let's talk about a family law case, which is stressful and oftentimes contentious. One of the things that I said before, an advantage that I would have with my expertise, is being able to rule quickly and being efficient in the disposition of my cases. Some of these divorce cases can take years to resolve. So let's just say, hypothetically, your case is taken a couple of years, and then you go to trial, and then a judge takes months. Sometimes I've even seen cases where a judge has taken a year to rule. just think about that as far as the impact on a family, and especially children. You have a divorce case that takes 2, 3, 4 years, and that's a large percentage of a child's minority. People need resolution and finality. That is just so important. The timeliness. Another issue is getting quick temporary relief. Take a situation where one spouse leaves the home, parties get into a fight, and the spouse that is the primary breadwinner is not providing any support for the family, and maybe the mortgage isn't getting paid and the other bills aren't getting paid. You want to be able to get those parties in front of you fairly quickly, and you want to be able to make a ruling so that at least they're stable. Bills are being paid. There's a court order in place for support. There's a court order in place for time sharing with the children and both parents. Those are some areas where I think I would be able to help improve the system. What also is so important is your demeanor as a judge, making the parties and the lawyers feel comfortable in court. And part of the ways that you do that, the first thing I think is important is when you walk into the courtroom that you have reviewed the court file and you know what their case is about. That's one thing that puts lawyers and parties at ease when a judge comes in and they are familiar with the case. Because if they're not, that doesn't cause confidence in the judiciary. And as I said before, putting people at ease. Everyone is nervous when they're in a courtroom. Even lawyers are nervous. Doesn't matter how many times you've been to court, you've got some butterflies when you walk into the courtroom. And you're also, sometimes you're nervous for your client because you don't know how a judge is going to rule. But when a judge makes things comfortable, puts people at ease, rules efficiently, listens, gives everyone a fair opportunity to be heard, those are critical qualities of a judge.
What are your thoughts on voir dire, jury selection, in terms of time the attorneys are given to choose a jury?
Well, voir dire is, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of the trial because you've got to get fair and impartial jurors. And as far as time limits, I don't believe in a specific time limit for each case. I think you look at things as a judge on a case-by-case basis. You want to make sure that that's a time where the lawyers get to ask potential jurors questions. I like, as an attorney, to ask open-ended questions because you really get to hear from people what their potential biases may be, and that allows either a judge to strike a juror for cause or one of the lawyers to use one of their preemptory challenges, and typically each lawyer gets 3 peremptory challenges, which means they're able to say to a judge, I want to strike this potential juror. And I don't think, you want to be efficient with time, but I don't think you should have an inflexible rule that limits, say, that process to an hour or an hour and a half. I think you need to be flexible.
Well, let me ask you this. We've talked a lot about your legal philosophy in terms of how you practice, things that you would do if you were chosen as a judge. Tell me some of the things that you do in your free time.
Well, what I love to do in my free time is I'm a runner and I'm a tennis player. I was a ranked player as a junior, and I ran track in college. So I still try and run 3 to 4 miles. I love to travel. This past year, I went to Hong Kong to visit my daughter who's working there. I took my children to Paris last spring break. My wife and I took our son to Toronto to see the Tampa Bay Rays and the Toronto Blue Jays play. My son, who is a baseball fanatic, he is the #1 Rays fan that there is. We started a tradition when for his 9th birthday, that every year on his birthday, he could pick a stadium that he wanted to visit where the Rays were playing that team. So the first place we went to was Denver, and we saw the Rays and the Rockies back in 2013. And we've almost gotten, I think, to half of the baseball stadiums. That one trip a year is sometimes turned into a 2-trip a year. But I've looked at it as it's something that we are always going to have great memories of. But besides seeing baseball and a father-son bonding experience, it's also been an excuse to travel to a city that he's never been to before, or in even some cases I hadn't been to before. So it's a way of seeing the country. And then we're also dog lovers.
I understand you have an audience in the studio today.
We do have an audience today. They were sitting next to me on the chair. But
maybe they had a hearing or something. I don't know.
Let's see if there is one way to get them, and that's if I offer each of them a cookie. So first, come here, Chester. You want a cookie? So we've got Chester here. Chester is a rescue dog. As you can see, he's the cutest dog that there is, and we often wonder who would have given Chester up. We had lost a rescue dog, Rosie, before Chester at too young of an age, and it took a few years for us to get over that loss. But one day, my son and my wife went to the Humane Society, and everybody was lined up and they wanted Chester. And so they were interviewing potential families. And so my wife and son were picked. And so I'm at the office and I get a call from one of my nieces. Says, "Uncle Gary, I didn't know you had a dog. You guys got a dog? I didn't know about it either." So I called my wife and she said, "I apologize. I hope you don't mind, but this dog was going to go if I didn't act quickly." So I'm very happy that she made the executive decision to bring Chester home, and he has been an absolute delight to our family. With so many dogs out there that need to be rescued, and so I encourage everyone to adopt an animal because they are like your family. But we also have another guest here. I'll put Chester down right now.
He looks like a Chester.
He does. My son named him. My older son named him. My son Corey, who's now 22 and a senior at FSU.
Right.
But here's Oliver. Okay. Now, my daughter Mallory, who is also 22. Corey and Mallory are twins. My daughter moved to New York to begin a modeling career when she was 16 years old, and also finished high school online and made straight A's. And then she got hired by Brandy Melville USA, in which now she is in charge of managing stores in Sydney, Australia, Hong Kong, Shanghai, China, and Fifth Avenue in New York. And she's opening up a brand new store in Sydney right now.
That's incredible.
So she wanted her own puppy, and my wife and I said, "Do not get a puppy. You're going to be traveling overseas, and you're just not going to have time to take care of them." Well, she didn't listen to us, so she got Oliver, and
you got Oliver.
So when she was sent overseas, she brought Oliver home to us. It was only going to be for a short period of time, but then she was doing so well at her job that they wanted her to go to another overseas location. So now, yes, we have Oliver, and someday when she's going to want Oliver back, that is going to be a difficult conversation to have, because Oliver is a true member of the family now too, and he and Chester get along. And then my older son, Corey, also adopted a bunny. So we've got 2 dogs and a bunny. They're a very special part of our lives. So
I
Chester and I
appreciate them making time in their busy schedules
Yes,
to
they
come
do
on the
have,
air.
between eating cookies and going to the dog park and sleeping, they do have a very busy day.
Well, the election is August 18th, 2020. I would encourage everybody to get involved, make sure that you vote. In terms of this is a nonpartisan election, so whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a party affiliation to vote in this, right?
That's correct. And a lot of people don't understand that these judicial races in Florida are nonpartisan by law. And so the election is on the primary day. And so oftentimes people who are independents or no party affiliation don't show up to vote on primary day because they're not allowed to vote in a Democratic or Republican primary. But they need to know that they can come and vote for judges and school board members because those are nonpartisan races. And I say to people that what other official on a ballot that you're voting for has the power to make life and death decisions, has the power to take your kids away from you, take your house away from you, take your money away from you. So you want to make sure that the person that you're entrusting with those very serious responsibilities is qualified, has substantial courtroom experience, optimally is an expert in an area of the law. And so it's so critical, and it is nonpartisan. The judicial branch is so critical. We want our judges to be independent. We don't want our judges making political decisions. We want our judges making fair decisions based on the law. If you want laws to be changed, lobby your congressperson or your state rep or senators. Judges don't write the laws. Judges interpret the law, and they make decisions in family law for the best interests of children, and they follow the law, and they do it with integrity, and they do it with fairness to all parties concerned.
And to use a baseball analogy, you want a judge who's going to call balls and strikes the same for everybody.
Well, that's what Chief Justice Roberts said in his confirmation hearing, and it's a good analogy. John Roberts said that people don't go to the baseball game to watch the umpires. They go to watch the players. Although I sometimes do find it interesting to watch what the umpires are doing in between the plays to make sure that they're prepared. Because I remember Justice Roberts making that analogy, and it is interesting to watch how an umpire gets prepared for, depending if there's a runner on first base or second base, and watching what they're doing and how hard they're concentrating, because they do not want to be the center of attention by making a bad call. They want to make a right call. And the same thing with a judge. A judge wants to make the right call the first time. They don't want to have their ruling reversed on appeal and have to do something over again. So my hope as a judge is to always be prepared to treat everyone fairly and with integrity, and make decisions that are in the best interest of families and children.
Well, I really appreciate you being on with me, Gary. If people want to get more information about you and your campaign, how can they reach you?
Well, they can call my office at area code 813-223-3200. They can go to my campaign website, garydolgin.com, and learn more about me. And and they can send an email to garydolginforjudge@gmail.com. But anyone who wants to call me or email me, I'm happy to respond and answer any questions.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to all of you who have been watching or listening. We have 2 shows coming up in February. We have Adam Biren, who is a workers' comp attorney, on February 7th. And we have Jason Handon, who actually is my former law clerk, and he's a board certified construction lawyer. We're going to have him on February 18th. I'll be posting more information about that. If you ever have any questions or are interested in having a guest or being a guest on the show, feel free to contact me anytime at 954-341-2777, or you can reach me on Twitter at Jeff Adelman in the front. Again, Happy New Year to everybody, and be well. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.